one of our special programs at ISKCON Sandton. We're going to be glorifying Srila Prabhupada, which we're doing once every month in celebration of ISKCON 50, or 50 years since Srila Prabhupada established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that date is coming up soon. It's within 2 months, I think, maybe just a few days over 2 months actually. But yeah, it's coming up soon. Actually, not 2 months, 1 month. I'm giving the wrong date. It's 1 month. Within 1 month, it will be exactly 50 years since Srila Prabhupada established ISKCON in the Western world. So today we're going to be reading from. I just want to leave my laptop on the side. We're going to be reading from this is a new set of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta. So this is volume 3. But the section of chapters is called Only He Could Lead Them. Only He Could Lead Them, and we were fortunate that His Grace Shonika Rishi Prabhu did the first 3 chapters. And today I'll have the good fortune to be covering chapters 4 to 7, which is speaking, the 4 chapters are entitled, Our Master Has Not Yet Finished His Work. Swamiji's departure, so Srila Prabhupada's departure. We will see what that's about. And then India Revisited, part 1 and 2. So where are we in this, in Lilamrta? It's basically, I should probably get my notes out. Trying to be too fancy and I'll forget something. Let's make sure I remember everything. Get out my Sherlock Holmes. So basically, those 4 chapters were basically in January 1967. Prabhupada left New York and arrived in San Francisco for the first time. So at that point, Prabhupada had one center that he'd visited, which was in New York, and he'd left New York for San Francisco, where they started a center in Haight-Ashbury. Haight and Ashbury are 2 main roads, hippie town, San Francisco, and on the corner, that's where they established their storefront. So the Hare Krishna temple was becoming famous there, so Prabhupada made an appearance there. And just as Prabhupada's leaving San Francisco, that's where we're starting today. So he's leaving San Francisco and he's going back to New York, and that's in April, I think. Yeah, in April 1967. So we're going to cover the period from April 1967 till December, I think it's December 14th, something like that, December 14th, 1967. So it's a number of months, and I'm going to try to do it in a way which I'm going to present it according to my realization and my understanding. So you'll see that's it for my notes. No more notes. So what we're going to do is, besides these, we're going to look at this time period, and we're going to highlight specific qualities of Srila Prabhupada that happened, and chronologically we'll take you through the events as well. So just sort of to piece everything together. So you get the philosophical aspect of what Prabhupada was doing, and you get the once upon a time aspect, the story aspect of where Prabhupada was. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Lila, it's chapter 23. Chapter 23, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to Sanatana Goswami, and he explains the 26 qualities of a devotee. Yeah, so these are important to know about them. And those 26 qualities are always there in Srila Prabhupada. In every one of his interactions, you can see at least one of these qualities. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at these 26 qualities over this time period. So when I said this to my wife, Shangarasa, she said, "Does you know that means you have just over 1 minute to discuss each quality?" And she said, "That's going to be difficult for you." So I said, "Okay, let me try to stick to that time, because I think we have until 5." So we're going to go through those 26 qualities. I'm going to tell you what those are first, and then we're going to go through Prabhupada's what he was doing. I'll explain what he was doing at different points, and we'll take you through the story. And I'll take you through different significant points I've selected. So let's begin. There's 26 qualities of a devotee, and as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains it. So I'll go through them in alphabetical order. I think that's best. So it's a devotee is benevolent, he's clean, cleanliness, he has compassion, he completely controls the 6 bad qualities. So that's lust, anger, envy, greed, madness, and illusion. He's desireless, so basically he desires nothing for himself. That's a better way to say it. He does not eat more than is required. He's equal to everyone. He's expert. He's faultless. Fixed. He's friendly. He's grave. He's humble. He's kind to everyone. He's magnanimous, merciful, mild, non-possessive. He's peaceful, poetic, respectful, sane, satisfied, silent, surrendered to Krishna, the most important one, and he's truthful. So I went through it quickly because we're going to go into detail, obviously, when we're looking at Prabhupada. So these are 26 primary qualities of a devotee. So we're gonna go through this Lilamrta. So on the very first page, there's one quality. So I just want to highlight to you that the Lilamrta has a number of volumes. I have at least 12 or 13 of these books. And just within 3 or 4 chapters, I'm able to find even more than once one of these 26 qualities, just to show you how Prabhupada was the personification of a devotee. So here the first quality that Prabhupada is highlighting. So what's happening is that Prabhupada left San Francisco to come back to New York. But on the flight, he said he was experiencing blockading in the ears. So that's how he described it, quote, And so I'll just read a small paragraph here which explains this quality of being benevolent. It means that he was always trying to do something for everyone's benefit. There was no warning that Srila Prabhupada's health would break down, or if there were, no one heeded it. As he moved from his devotees in San Francisco to his devotees in New York, no one passed any words that Swamiji should slow down. After the 5.5-hour jet flight, Prabhupada spoke of a blockading in his ears, but he seemed all right. He didn't rest, but went straight through the festive airport reception into 3 hours of strong lecturing and chanting in the storefront at 26 2nd Avenue. To his New York disciples, he appeared dazzling and lovable, and by his presence, his glances, and his words, he increased their Krishna consciousness. To them, his advanced age, now nearly 72 years, was but another of his transcendental features. He was their strength, and they never thought to consider his strength. So, when I was thinking about this quality of benevolence, I thought Prabhupada, he was experiencing some health issue at the beginning of it, and he never slowed down. He went straight into 3 hours of strong lecturing. Hare Krishna. No stop. Straight off the flight, he's got some problem with his ears. Blockading means he can't really hear so well. He goes into 3 hours of lecturing. So he was thinking of the benefit of everyone, his disciples, and all the hippies who were coming there to be with him and to hear him speak. So I'm going to go through them quickly because there's a lot, and then we need to get through them. But I want you to take this away from you. So there'll be something that strikes you, specific, even if it's one quality. And if you meditate on that quality of Prabhupada, you'll develop attachment for him. And if you're attached to Srila Prabhupada, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. There's no doubt about that. So Prabhupada, so here's the next quality. Prabhupada is speaking about one who is expert. Prabhupada defined the expert in nectar of devotion. He says one who knows exactly what to do at any given point of time. The word is daksha. It means one who knows any situation, he knows exactly what to do. So Prabhupada here, he's explaining. So Prabhupada it's saying here, as he sat looking happily at the freshly painted walls and the bright faces of his disciples, Prabhupada explained how one obtains expertise in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's defining it here. By submissively following the spiritual master. End of sentence. There we go. That's Prabhupada's defining it. But then Prabhupada is showing how he's expert. So here's the example. Brahmananda also talked with Prabhupada about the $6,000 he had lost to Mr. Price. So there was some transaction. So Prabhupada's back in New York and they're telling him about everything that's happened. Prabhupada insisted that they prosecute the culprits. He sent Brahmananda to speak with various lawyers and also tell Mr. Price and Mr. Tyler that His Excellency, that was the name that Mr. Price had for Prabhupada, was back and would take them to court. At that, they relented. Mr. Tyler refunded most of the $5,000 deposit, and Mr. Price returned $750 of the $1,000 he had wheedled out of Brahmananda. The legal services had cost more than $1,000, so that was all lost. But Prabhupada said that when dealing with a tiger, you can expect to get scratched. That's just Prabhupada being poetic, which is another quality. But anyway, we'll get to that. In a letter to Kirtanananda in Montreal, Prabhupada describes the successful termination of the Price affair. Prabhupada says, "You will be glad to know that I have been able, by the grace of Krishna, to recover $4,227 out of the 5,000 gone in the belly of Sir Conman fraud. Brackets, Christ. he had a sense of humor too. So that's Prabhupada's expertise. He just knew what to do. His disciples were struggling. There was a property transaction, and they lost some money to this Mr. Price fellow, Sir Conman fraud, as Prabhupada calls him. But Prabhupada managed to get back 85% of it. Only 15% was lost. So he'd do anything for money for Krishna. So here's the next quality, is to be friendly. So it's explained here. Prabhupada went onto a television show with a person called Mr. Burke, and he was a very nasty person. He normally would make fun of his guests. He'd invite people and then tease them on his show, basically. So that's what happened when Prabhupada went there. Before they went on air, Mr. Burke had asked Prabhupada's permission to smoke a cigar, and Prabhupada had graciously consented. Mr. Burke had introduced his guest as a real Swami. When he had asked Prabhupada why he was against sex, Prabhupada had said that he wasn't. Sex should be restricted to marriage for raising Krishna-conscious children. But Mr. Burke had persisted, wanting to know what was wrong with sex outside of marriage. The real purpose of human life, Srila Prabhupada had replied, was self-realization. When one's mind is preoccupied with capturing new sex partners, keeping the mental peace necessary for self-realization becomes impossible. Mr. Burke had agreed. In fact, his manners had been the best ever. And at the end, he called Prabhupada a very charming gentleman. This was like unheard of, because he'd never call anyone a charming gentleman. And Prabhupada, because you see, Mr. Burke asked him if he can smoke a cigar, and Prabhupada, Prabhupada, there's another, point of his expertise. Obviously, we may not be so expert as Prabhupada, we're definitely not. But it shows, by extending that arm of friendship, how he won over this gentleman. Without really, he didn't preach, this man started asking him questions. And then Prabhupada spoke about what is self-realization. So he got into the comfort zone of this man by being friendly. So next quality is cleanliness. I'll say something because my mother's here. And she's covering her eyes. So my mother always says to me, cleanliness is next to godliness. So then I say, sometimes maybe I did something that's not so clean. So then I say to her, yeah, it's next to godliness, but it's not really godliness. It's godliness is Krishna consciousness. Cleanliness is next to it. So it facilitates Krishna consciousness. But without Krishna consciousness, cleanliness means nothing. So first be Krishna conscious, and then you can be clean, so it can facilitate your Krishna consciousness. You know why? Because she's always busy cleaning, and then she says, oh, it's so, she's tired, so there's no time for this, or reading, or chanting. So I say, yeah, cleanliness is next to godliness. First be Krishna conscious. So I tease her like that. But yeah, it's because of her that, I have developed some sort of clean habits, I guess. So yeah, that's the pastime Prabhupada. It says here, we brought the painting of Brahmananda speaking, Brahmananda Prabhu. He says that we brought the painting of Lord Nrsimha into Swamiji's room, and we were all chanting. So Prabhupada's having heart palpitations at this point. It's happening in New York. When Swamiji, it's happening over the Memorial Day weekend, if I remember correctly. When Swamiji had to use the bedpan in front of Lord Nrsimha's painting, he begged forgiveness of Lord Nrsimha. He could understand that Lord Nrsimhadev was sitting right in front of him. I saw it as a painting, but Swamiji saw it as Lord Nrsimha himself sitting there. So that's Prabhupada. Even though he couldn't remain clean, he was mindful of that. So that shows, how he was always clean. Even though he was on a transcendental level, but still he was mindful of it, teaching us something by his example. So the next one is that a devotee is mild. What does mild mean? I have the definition. I have a PowerPoint presentation, but apparently the presentation projector wasn't available. And I had some nice pictures of Prabhupada, which you probably never saw before. But we'll get another time to show you that. But so the next point was mild. So mild is a definition for it. I've got it here. Let me just find it quickly. Mild says gentle and not easily provoked. So Prabhupada, he was going through so many things, but he was gentle and he wasn't easily provoked. So here's the example. The doctor wants to perform a spinal tap on Srila Prabhupada. Anyone know what that is? They take a needle this long and they stick it into your spine. Hare Krishna. I work in pharmaceuticals. It's not nice. And so Prabhupada's in the hospital now, Bellevue Hospital, I think. No, I know, yeah, Bellevue Hospital in New York. So the doctor didn't want to be impeded. He explained why spinal tap was necessary, but he wasn't asking for consultation or permission. Everyone except for Kirtanananda, who insisted on staying, had to leave the room while the doctor performed the spinal tap. Neither Prabhupada, who was too weak, nor his boys, who were uncertain how to act on his behalf, opposed the doctor. The devotees filed out of Prabhupada's room while the doctor readied the largest, most frightening needle they had ever seen. When they were allowed back, one disciple asked cautiously, bless you, one disciple asked cautiously, "Did it hurt, Swamiji?" Srila Prabhupada, his golden skilled form wrapped in white hospital garments and lying between the white sheets, turned slightly and said, "We are tolerant." That shows, Prabhupada, it's difficult to provoke him, it's difficult to disturb him, So this is the example that I took for mild. I could have taken other examples as well, but they tie in with some of the other qualities. Okay, so then the most important one, as Prabhupada says in that purport, surrender to Krishna. So, let's see. Prabhupada wrote a letter from his hospital room. So I'm taking you through the events and I'm giving you the qualities, and hopefully we'll finish. I'm writing this, but I started late, so Jainanda Prabhu has to give me at least 10 minutes. I'm writing this letter from the hospital. All of a sudden I developed some headache as well as throbbing of the chest. When I rub my chest, I feel some sensation in my left hand, and when I rub my left hand, I feel sensation in my chest. My left hand no more works independently. I therefore ask you if there is any good Vedic physician in Mathura who can send me some medicines. That is, you purchase and send them by airmail. And then he goes on further and he says, I am afraid if this is not a disease like Lakya, the boys are taking utmost care of me. There is no scarcity of care, but still, after all, this body is subject to death. I came here with a great mission to execute my spiritual master's order, but my heart is stabbing me. Of course, I am not afraid of Maya. I know Maya cannot touch me, but still, if I die in this condition, my mission will remain unfulfilled. So that speaks for itself. Shows Prabhupada's surrender to Krishna. He's not afraid for himself, and he's not afraid of Maya, but he wants to execute the order of his spiritual master, and is depending on Krishna, So there he also says in the end there, please therefore pray to Prabhu Lord Chaitanya and Vrindavan Bihar to rescue me at this time. My mission is still not finished. Then the next quality is Prabhupada's quality of being fixed or steady. Yeah, it's a quality of a devotee. So it says here, Prabhupada then sang a verse. So Prabhupada was gaining strength in the hospital and disciples were coming. So one devotee asked Prabhupada, what does lotus feet mean? So Prabhupada sang this verse, Samsritaye pada palavaplavam mahat padam punya yasho murare Bhavam budir vatsa padam 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 yadvi padam natesham. Then he asked the three devotees present to repeat each line after him again and again, until they had learned both the tune and the words. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada explained, sitting up in his bed, hospital bed, the time of death is compared to crossing a vast ocean. It is very fearful. One doesn't know where he will go in the next life, and at every step there is danger in the material world. But for one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the vast dangerous ocean of birth and death becomes shrunk up to no more than the impression made in mud by a calf's hoofprint. There is danger, but the devotee doesn't care for it. Just like if a gentleman is riding by in a carriage and he passes a small puddle, he considers it insignificant. So do you understand now what lotus feet means? It was clear. So Prabhupada repeats this verse many times through the years, and it explains that his mind is fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. So that highlights that quality, of being fixed or steady. He's fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. Next one is humility. Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says meek or humble. So Prabhupada is he's still there at the hospital. He wants to leave, but they don't want to let him leave. So they were having philosophical discussion. Why is Prabhupada getting ill? He's just supposed to be on a transcendental level. How can he be getting illness? So they told Prabhupada. When they told Prabhupada about their philosophical discussions, he replied only briefly, Krishna heard all your sincere prayers, and he thought, all right, let him stay and do his nonsense. So many devotees are praying on his behalf. Unquote. So Prabhupada is describing his activities and some nonsense. Obviously he was doing the greatest welfare work for the entire world. But he was thinking it's not very significant. And that's his humility. So at this time he also taught the devotees the Nishingadev pranam. So there's many firsts in these chapters, many first time things that I learned. So he taught the devotees the praise to Lord Nishingadev. And then the next quality we're looking at is he was kind to everyone. I had a nice picture for this one. So there's a picture of Prabhupada walking with two of his disciples, and then Mother Yamuna on the side. And a child next to her. So it's everyone in the category, men, ladies, and children. So Prabhupada, they were all walking together. My dear young, beautiful... Okay, so this is the quality of kind to everyone. So Prabhupada, he was meant to speak at the some rally. What is this called? There was a rally happening in New York, in Tompkins Square Park. It's just called a some rally. And there was hundreds of young American youth. So Prabhupada couldn't attend. He was still in hospital. But he basically penned out an address called An Address to the American Youth. And he started it off like this. And I thought this shows that he's kind to everyone. He said, my dear young, beautiful boys and girls of America. I thought that was so nice. He's so kind to everyone, He just sees the good qualities in people he doesn't even know. My dear young, beautiful boys and girls of America, I have come to your country with great hope and a great mission. And then my spiritual master asked me to preach the cult of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Western world. That was the seed-giving incident. Then he goes on to explain. He says, this is not, he says here, and even after arriving here, when I perceive that some of the youngsters are being misled, confused and frustrated, this is not the condition of your country only, but in every country. The young people are neglected, although it is they who are the flower and future hope of everyone. So I thought to myself that if I go to the American youth with my message, and they join with me in this movement, then it will spread all over the world, and all the problems of the world will be solved. Yeah. So he wrote a long address, and he attached a letter in there. So next quality is that a devotee is peaceful. So this is interesting. So Prabhupada really wants to leave the hospital. No more needles. Prabhupada hated needles. And so the Prabhupada, he felt he was strong enough to leave. So the nurse brought in a bed on wheels. Prabhupada said he wanted Garga Muni to push it. He then sat on it cross-legged and put his hand in his bead bag. And Garga Muni followed the nurse, wheeled him out the door, down the hall and onto the elevator. They went to the third floor and entered the room. The nurse left them alone. Garga Muni could sense Prabhupada's uneasiness. He was also nervous. It was such an unlikely place for him to be with his spiritual master. Then a different nurse entered with a needle, trying to give the Swami a little injection. No, Prabhupada shook his head. I'm sorry, Garga Muni said flatly, we're not going to do it. The nurse was exasperated but smiled. It won't hurt. Take me back, Prabhupada ordered Garga Muni. When the nurse insisted, Garga Muni acted rashly, his usual tendency, and stepped between the nurse and Srila Prabhupada. I'm ready to fight if I have to, Garga Muni thought. I won't let you do it, he said, and wheeled the bed out of the room, leaving the nurse behind. Garga Muni was lost. He was somewhere on the third or fourth floor, faced with corridors and doors, and Prabhupada's room was on the sixth floor. Unsure where he was going, Garga Muni wheeled the corridors with Prabhupada sitting cross-legged, chanting on his beads. So that's Prabhupada being peaceful, because actually, if I read the whole section, you'll see he bumps into the wall, and Prabhupada is just sitting, chanting, and he's lost. It's chaotic. The nurse is looking, the doctor is angry, upset. Brahmananda is upset because his brother just acted rashly. Prabhupada's lost somewhere in the hospital, but Prabhupada's just shanti. He's chanting on his beads. So a devotee, the next one is a devotee is respectful. That means he offers respect to others. So Prabhupada's finally left the hospital. While the doctors are telling his disciples that you're going to kill this old man. At 10 a.m. on June 8th, they left the hospital. Prabhupada wanted to stop briefly at the temple at 26 2nd Avenue before going to the house in Long Branch. Entering the storefront, walking shakily, he came before the portraits of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and his spiritual master's father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. For the first time, Prabhupada's disciples saw him offer fully prostrated obeisances. So for the first time, we saw Prabhupada offering Dandavat Pranam. As he prostrated himself before his Guru Maharaj, his disciples also paid obeisances and felt their devotion increase. So the Prabhupada's offering, the first time we are seeing him offer full Dandavat Pranam, and he's being respectful to his spiritual master. But that he carries with him in his heart. But this is the external display of that. So the next one, in the next paragraph. So Prabhupada's leaving for a house in Long Branch. He's meant to recover there. But he wanted to go to the temple in New York on 26 2nd Avenue before. So Long Branch is somewhere also in New York State. So next quality is that a devotee does not eat more than required. So this one will be interesting. Because remember, Prabhupada is sick. So where did I find this? So this is the next paragraph. When Prabhupada arrived at his cottage in Long Branch at 1 o'clock, he had Kirtan Nanda immediately begin cooking lunch. It would be Prabhupada's first regular hot meal, rice, dal, chapati, sabji, since his stroke 9 days ago. Prabhupada went to bed but soon got up and came into the kitchen asking, "Is it ready?" Kirtan Nanda made a few excuses and said he would hurry. After a few minutes, Prabhupada returned. He seemed furious. "Why are you taking so long?" Kirtan Nanda moved as quickly as he could, but he couldn't make the dal boil any faster. "Whatever you have," Prabhupada said, "let me eat it. I don't care if it is raw." So, this seems like the opposite, right? A devotee doesn't eat more than required. But what was required? Prabhupada needed to eat a full meal to regain his strength. He hadn't eaten a full meal for 9 days, and he wasn't eating hospital food. They were bringing the hippies were bringing whole watermelons into the hospital. And oranges and apples. But when Prabhupada actually saw the watermelon, he was very happy because Prabhupada loves watermelons. He is not too impressed with the apple. Once they brought him an apple and they said, "Prabhupada, we brought you a bag of apples." He said, So, he liked watermelons though. So here's the next quality. Devotee is magnanimous. You may have heard this one before. Prabhupada was sitting he's here in the house now, Long Branch. Prabhupada was sitting in the backyard when Govinda Dasi saw a large slug climbing up the wall. She showed it to Prabhupada. "Chant to the poor thing," he said, and she began to chant Hare Krishna. So there's Prabhupada. Magnanimous, there's a definition for it. I should remember it actually, but it's right here, so let's read it. It means generous or forgiving, especially towards a rival or less powerful person. So here's a slug. I think he's a little less powerful than Prabhupada. Right? And Prabhupada saw the slug and he said, "Chant to the poor thing." So this shows his magnanimous nature. This nice one. A devotee is grave. Oof. You've seen the pictures of Prabhupada smiling, laughing. You've seen pictures of Prabhupada preaching strongly. But have you seen grave? There are a few. Srila Prabhupada gave Jadurani a photograph of himself to paint from. Taken in India before he had come to America, it showed him grave, there's the word, and standing very straight against a blank white wall. You may have seen this picture. It's here. "Oh Swamiji," Jadurani remarked, "you look so unhappy here." "No!" That's a long O, he said thoughtfully, stretching out the sound of the word. "No, that is not unhappy. That was a moment of ecstasy." So that's Prabhupada. That's what grave means, You see his face. You may have seen this picture. Prabhupada standing next to a picture of his spiritual master on the wall behind him, and he's standing there, and it looks like a mugshot to us. But Prabhupada says it's a moment of ecstasy for him that he was feeling internally. So what happened is the devotees thereafter, I think it was 1972, they made Prabhupada take another picture like this. He's standing against a wall, and his spiritual master is there, but he's got a slight smile. So he asked him, "Is that better?" So he did a take two for them. This is how much he loved his disciples. So the next quality is non-possessive, or without material possessions. So now what's happened is that Prabhupada's he's left New York, and he's gone to Stinson Beach. There's a house there this is in San Francisco. So he left New York, he's back in San Francisco now to try and recover. He wanted sunshine. Prabhupada knew sunshine would cure him. He wanted sunshine, and he didn't really want to go back to India. He said he's disgusted with India, actually. He didn't want to go back. So, but he says here, so they had their first successful Rath Yatra in San Francisco. That's another first. And it was very, very successful. So, after all the visitors departed, the deities remained in the house with Prabhupada and his servants. Never heard of these things happening here, but they took the deities of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra out to the beach where Prabhupada was staying, and put the deities on the piano. Prabhupada felt satisfied that his disciples had successfully held a Rath Yatra. Although untrained, they were sincere. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Bhakti Vinod Thakur would have been pleased to see the first American Rath Yatra. So why did I say non-possessive here? Because generally in the material world, when someone is successful, they want their name on the plaque. This was the first Rath Yatra in the West, but Prabhupada was nowhere to be seen there on the site. But still, he was so pleased. And he told them that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur would have been pleased. So he was not possessive. He didn't want, so without material possessions, he didn't want the subtle name and fame and all of these things. He simply wanted Krishna consciousness to be preached around the world. So that's what I took from, according to my realization, I label that one. The next one is that he's equal to everyone. So this is the story of Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, and everyone might know it. So this is Prabhupada's departure. He's going to leave soon. He's going to leave America, but he has to leave San Francisco again, back to New York, and then to America. So he travels a lot. Everyone fixed his attention on Swamiji as he sat before them, leaning against the Madras-covered wall, speaking softly. Suddenly the door opened and Ravindra Swarup unhappily entered. Everyone knew that Ravindra Swarup wanted to leave Krishna consciousness. He hadn't taken his initiation vow seriously. He wanted to move on. So we'll go further. Ravindra usually had a cavalier manner, enhanced by a handsome face, long tousled hair, and a beard. But now he was wretched and sobbing and crazy. He crawled towards Prabhupada. So he didn't have his recall, he crawled towards Prabhupada, who sat but 2 steps off the floor on the simple redwood dice. Prabhupada looked at him with compassion. Come here, my boy. Ravindra crawled up the steps and placed his bushy head on Prabhupada's lap. The devotees watched as Prabhupada stroked Ravindra's head, and the boy cried and cried. Yeah, so this is showing how Prabhupada's equal. He's equal to everyone. His disciples were serving him staunchly, and like Brahmananda Prabhu were taking care of him physically. And there was Ravindra Swarup who left and looked a crazy fellow, but Prabhupada was encouraging him and stroking his head and asking him, what next line he says, what's wrong, my son? You don't have to be unhappy. You don't have to be so unhappy. And Ravindra bawls out, I want, he sobbed, to reach God directly without anyone in between. Prabhupada says, don't be a crazy fellow. And he continues to stroke his head. So next quality is merciful. Well, we know Prabhupada is merciful. That's why we're all here, right? Because of Prabhupada's mercy. So Prabhupada returned to his apartment, which soon became chaotic. It was late. Many people wanted initiation. So he's about to leave San Francisco and now back to New York, and everyone wants initiation because they think they're never going to see him again. He's going to leave his body. Mukunda Jayananda and other temple leaders tried to determine which candidates were sincere. They selected candidates, 6 at a time, and allowed them to enter Prabhupada's room. Kirtanananda requested him to stop. Further initiations could be done through the mail, but Prabhupada said he would continue initiating whoever was present. That shows Prabhupada's mercy. They wanted him to stop and take a break, but Prabhupada, he just wanted to give the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to everyone. So he said he'll initiate anyone who was present. The next quality of a devotee is he's desireless. He's without material desires. Prabhupada turned to his adoring followers, gathered close around him at the boarding gate. He's about to leave San Francisco. Actually, I have only one desire, and whoever does this will please me very much. Now I have a temple in New York, in Montreal, and a temple in San Francisco, but I do not have any temple in Los Angeles. He told them to remain in Krishna consciousness and to please preach. So desireless means to have no material desires. And Prabhupada says, I have one desire. And that was for Krishna's pleasure, to open a temple to worship Krishna in Los Angeles. So that was done, and Rukmini Dwarkadish were established there. So the next quality is poetic. We know Prabhupada's a poet, or Malkine Bhagavad Dharma, right? So Prabhupada's a poet in every line of his books, because isn't he always giving analogies, right? Comparing this to steel rod and fire, and Prabhupada's got so many quotes. There's like short stories that he says, but here's just one. He says, Hare Krishna mantra is like a big cannon. He told them, go and sound this cannon so everyone can hear it, and it will drive away Maya. So his metaphors, he has metaphors for different things. And he's saying this Hare Krishna is like a big cannon. So the next quality is compassion. Prabhupada's very compassionate. Just 30 minutes before he had to leave for the airport, Prabhupada sat in his room chanting on the beats of a girl who had asked to be initiated. Imagine you're ill, you're leaving for treatment, and just 30 minutes before you leave, he's not worried about his bags, if his tilak is packed and all his dhotis and kurtas, if his books are okay. 30 minutes before he leaves, before his departure, he's not worried about traffic to make to the airport on time. He's chanting on a girl's beads who wanted to be initiated. That's Srila Prabhupada. And then now we move on to the next chapter. So Prabhupada went to New York, and from New York it was a quick stop, New York, and from New York he left for India via Moscow. Right? He left via Moscow. But so the first page of India Revisited, it says this quality is that it completely controls the 6 bad qualities. So it's one who's self-controlled. Those 6 bad qualities we talked about. So Prabhupada writes to Brahmananda in New York, where is Prabhupada? You'll discover now. Accept my blessings. I am always thinking of your separation feelings. Please do your duty nicely, and Krishna will help you in all respects. We were delayed here for 16 hours. So he's still in New York. He's writing to Brahmananda. Delayed for 16 hours. We went to Vrindavan, Rangrasa and I, from Mayapur, on train, from Howrah to Mathura station. Then we took a train back. And on the way there it was 6 hours delayed, I think. On the way back it was 23 hours delayed. And the 6 bad qualities were not controlled in me. Hare Krishna. I was furious. She was getting ill, and it was something else. But Prabhupada here 16 hours delayed. He writes it as if it's just another thing. We were delayed here for 16 hours, starting this morning at 9 for Delhi. So it's just like it continues. He's not affected. So it wasn't all easy for Prabhupada to establish this society you see today. Next quality is the devotee is sane. What does that mean? It means, according to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he's not affected by the illusory energy, Maya. He's not affected by Maya. So Prabhupada's now in Delhi. He's at Chowri Bazaar. Chowri Bazaar led to side streets that led to the narrow lanes of Chippiwada. He's with Kirtanananda Prabhu at that time, where upright metal posts blocked autos and rickshaws from entering. The driver stopped the taxi on an empty road and turned for his payment. Prabhupada took from his billfold 40 rupees, the same 40 rupees he carried with him on the boat to America in 1965. He took that money to America, it came back to India. He never used it. But the driver took the entire 40 rupees, you can see what's going to happen here, and said he would keep it all as the just fare. Prabhupada protested, the fare should have not been even half that. Loudly they argued back and forth in Hindi. The driver had pocketed the money and would give no change. Prabhupada knew that to get a policeman at this hour would be very difficult. Finally, although this had been nothing less than a robbery, Prabhupada let the man go. He cheated me, Prabhupada said. So Prabhupada, I took this example of his sanity. There's a definition of sanity also, but he was not affected. He'd argued to a certain point, and then he stopped. Let him go. So Prabhupada knew what to do there. He kept his words about him. Because you could argue with these people all day, and he knew that. And if you've been to India, you know that. So the next quality is that devotee is satisfied. So he doesn't expect respect. So here's Prabhupada's just arrived at Chippiwada temple. This is where he wrote the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And they just got to his room, Sri Krishna Pandit's place. The room was bare and dusty, and the bulb hanging from the ceiling created stark light and shadows. On the floor was a 3-foot-high cement dome, indicating that directly below was the altar and deities of Radha and Krishna. The dome prevented anyone from accidentally committing the offense of walking directly above the deities. The closet was stacked with printed Srimad Bhagavatam pages, Srimad Bhagavatam dust jackets, and form letters to prospective members of the League of Devotees. Everything was just as Prabhupada had left it. This is the room where I compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada told Kirtananda. I slept here, and over there was my cooker and my typewriter. I would sleep and type and cook and type and sleep and type. Kirtananda was shocked to think of Swamiji living here in such a poor, humble place. It wasn't even clean. So this is, Prabhupada was satisfied. You know how small this room is? It's like 4 by 5 meters. And there's a huge dome in the middle of the room where the deities are. So you can't really sleep properly. And he's an old man. And then he was typing across one corner and he was cooking in another corner. So he really couldn't move. But Prabhupada was satisfied. So, don't worry, you're getting there. Almost done. Truthfulness. I have 2 points here. So truthfulness, Prabhupada was always speaking about the absolute truth. He's always truthful. But here's a couple of interesting points. Prabhupada wrote from India, he wrote to North America, his disciples. He said, Vrindavan is an inspiration only, but our real field work is all over the world. Even if I die, you are my future hopes, and you will do it. I'm feeling very much for you all. Please let the ball roll on just as it is set. So Prabhupada wasn't sentimental. He was in Vrindavan, the place of Krishna, his home. But he said, Vrindavan is only an inspiration. Our real field work is all over the world. Spread Krishna consciousness. Then again, later, Prabhupada was discussing. So here is in Navadvip, it's later on, but we'll get there. But Prabhupada basically discussed something with his godbrother, and one of his disciples asked him, in Mayapur, one of his disciples asked him, Swamiji, what did you and Sridhar Maharaj discuss? Prabhupada said, oh, many things, but if I were to tell you now, you would faint. So he was very truthful. He just said it as it was. Prabhupada said about Sridhar Maharaj, his godbrother, he's self-realized. He has many things, but he's keeping them within him. He won't say anything or exhibit any emotions. So there's 2 more qualities. A devotee is faultless. That's a nice one. Prabhupada's now in Vrindavan. He's left Delhi. I think 6 days after he landed in Delhi. On Janmashtami Day, August 28th, Srila Prabhupada awarded the order of sannyas to Kirtanananda in a ceremony in the Radha Damodar temple. Kirtanananda thus became Srila Prabhupada's first disciple to become a sannyasi. Kirtanananda Swami. So how is this Prabhupada being faultless? You see, many people in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada gave Kirtanananda Maharaj sannyas, they criticized him, especially the Smarta Brahmanas. They said, how can you give a white-bodied person the order of sannyas? And they found fault in him. But Prabhupada was faultless because he was executing the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to take Krishna consciousness to every town and village. So this shows how he was without fault, even though others would try to find fault in him. The last quality of a devotee is he's a moni. Moni means, not that he moans a lot, it means that he's silent. Right? So what does silent mean? Well, for a devotee, silent means one doesn't speak anything else besides Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said that. But here it says, for Achyutananda, the most wonderful thing about Swamiji in Vrindavan was the simplicity of his life. Although in New York, Swamiji had worn simple robes, he had always been regal, a real guru, but here he lived very simply and humbly. Once when he sat down on the veranda outside his room to wash his hands, his body instantly became covered with flies. Kirtanananda and Achyutananda were always being bothered by the flies. This was the rainy season, but Prabhupada scarcely noticed them and sat quietly washing his hands. So I thought this is a good example of Prabhupada being silent. There's a whole bunch of flies on him. He's washing his hands. Didn't even flinch, didn't try to shoo them. Just sat there and he was silent. So this shows Prabhupada. He was expert. He knew exactly what to do and at what time. So in conclusion, basically from that point, Prabhupada was in Vrindavan. He left Vrindavan back to Delhi to the Chipawada temple. And from there, he was trying to negotiate with Krishna Pandit, Sri Krishna Pandit, which is the man who gave him the room, this Radha Krishna temple in Delhi. He left there towards Kartik time because his godbrothers told him, come to Calcutta, come to Navadvip and spend the month of Kartik with us. So Prabhupada was getting good sunshine in India and he was restoring his health. He was writing to his disciples saying, I'm 90% fit, I'm ready to come back. And Prabhupada left Delhi to Calcutta. As soon as he landed in Calcutta, guess what happened? His sister came to the airport. And she was there with Prashadam. She was Pishima, they used to call her, right? She was cooking. The devotees call her that. They was cooking for Prabhupada. But she cooked in a certain way that didn't agree with Prabhupada's body. But still, because she was Prabhupada's sister, he honored her Prashadam, but he was ill the next day actually. But, because he said it's okay, she's my sister, she cooked out of love for me, So Prabhupada was there in Calcutta, and then he visited. Prabhupada was, all these qualities are there again in these chapters. He was equal to everyone, kind to everyone. He visited all of his godbrothers. His godbrothers were not speaking to each other, but he visited Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, who engaged Prabhupada in writing in the Harmonist. He visited Sridhar Maharaj. He visited another one of his godbrothers, B.P. Keshava Maharaj. And he visited all of his godbrothers, even though they were at odds. He was equally disposed to all of them. And then from Calcutta, he went to Navadvip, spent time in the mud stay, spent time in Kartik there. And he trained his disciples. Kirtanananda Maharaj left back to the US. Achyutananda and Ramanuja, was a bit of an eccentric disciple, was with him with a big beard and head. Prabhupada didn't like it too much because he was creating a bad example. But anyway, he was there with Prabhupada. Eventually, Prabhupada went back to Calcutta and he left Calcutta for San Francisco. He left via Tokyo. Prabhupada would never go directly to where he wanted to go, and if he had to stop, he was stopping to see what the preaching field was like, if he could establish a center there. And he stopped at Tokyo, and he stopped there for a day, and he spoke to some government officers, and he became disgusted because they didn't want to hear anything about God consciousness. They were just materially inclined. So he said, no, we'll come back here in a later time. He said there's no hope at this point in time. So he left from Tokyo to San Francisco, and that's where this chapter ends. And we'll just read the last bit of India Revisited, the last paragraph, and then we're done. I don't think I'm over time because we started 20 minutes late, so maybe I'm within time, but we can take maybe a few questions. I don't know, Jainala Prabhu will advise us. So we'll read the last paragraph of this section where Prabhupada's returning to America from India. So Srila Prabhupada's at the airport. He's just arrived at San Francisco airport. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. Remember, Prabhupada's all alone. No servant, no secretary, no disciple, no GBC. Just Prabhupada traveling alone. He went to Tokyo alone, he came back to San Francisco. 72 years old. With the cane in his hand, so be careful. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples, so he could see them in the same customs. Since he had already sent ahead the 800 books and several crates of musical instruments, he had only one suitcase to place on the table before the inspector. Methodically, the inspector went through the contents. Cotton saris for the girls. Is that for Prabhupada? No. Silk garlands for the Jagannath deities. Is that for Prabhupada? No. Car towels. Is that for Prabhupada? No, it's for his disciples. He's got his special pair. Prabhupada was very particular about car towels. Saffron dhotis and kurtas. Is that for Prabhupada? No. A coconut grater. Is that for Prabhupada? No. And little bottles of Ayurvedic medicine. That's the only thing that's for Prabhupada. So of all the things he brought, he went to India to recuperate his health. But what did he bring back? Everything for his disciples. This is Prabhupada. What are these things? The inspector probed. The little bottles look strange, and he called for another inspector. A delay. Swamiji's disciples became perturbed by the petty-minded customs inspectors poking through Swamiji's things, now opening the tightly corked bottles, sniffing and checking the contents. They don't know what Ayurvedic medication is. The inspector seemed satisfied. Prabhupada tried to close the suitcase, but he couldn't work the zipper. Another delay. The devotees still anxiously chanted, watched as Swamiji with the help of the gentleman behind him. Remember, there's no servant, I said, right? There's a gentleman behind him, bless his soul, managed to zip the suitcase closed. Swamiji walked towards the glass doors. The devotees began chanting madly. Madly means they didn't know who they were. You've seen devotees chanting madly. Yeah. As he stepped through the door, I had a picture of it. Swamiji walked towards the glass doors. The devotees began chanting madly. As he stepped through the door, a devotee blew a conch shell at the airport. That resounded loudly throughout the hall. It was an airport announcement. Devotees garlanded him, and everyone pressed in, handing him flowers. He entered their midst as a beloved father enters and reciprocates the embrace of his loving children. So, it's beautiful. And Prabhupada says to them, writing from India, he says, my real family is here. My biological family is here, but you are my real family in America. And I can't wait to return to you. And this is how they welcomed him. You see how much love they had for him. And how much love Prabhupada had for them. Practically everything he was bringing back was for them. And they didn't worry about the things though. They just wanted Prabhupada, their father. They wanted him back because they were homeless hippies and he became their father. So that's a summary of this 4 chapters of Prabhupada Lilamrta. So what happens next is what Hayagriva Prabhu described as the Hare Krishna explosion. From 1967 December to 1969, the Hare Krishna movement exploded in America. Prabhupada regained his strength and he was preaching as if he was 20, 25 again. And the movement exploded. So this is Srila Prabhupada in his element, and reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta gives us that satisfaction in the heart. It's pleasing to the soul. So there's not much that I have to say any more than that. So let's know about these pastimes of Srila Prabhupada. We should know Srila Prabhupada's life story. At least in summary, we should know where he went from here to here, and think about these qualities. I want to emphasize his 26 qualities because these are emanating from him, and if we become attached to him, we develop these too. So thank you very much. Thank you to Prabhu, Jainada Prabhu and Nandakumar Prabhu for giving me the opportunity to speak. I hope it was okay, and I tried to present it in, according to my realization, how I understand when I'm reading Prabhupada's books. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.